We're rolling.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Nerdbuzzed!
Nerdbuzzed doesn't condone the consumption of alcohol by any persons under the age of 21. Please drink responsibly.
Welcome to Nerdbuzzed, the podcast where we talk about all the nerdy stuff that we care about and drink a cool frosty brew while we're doing it. I'm your host, Mark Sellinger, and with me, as always,
Jeremiah Johnson.
yes. Glad to have you back, Jay.
Yeah, me too.
I've been missing you.
Glad to be back.
Everybody's been missing you. They won't shut up about how much they
guys.
keep missing you. Especially Jack.
Yeah, I know.
You know that's true. The real question is, have you missed Jack?
I played the fifth. I like the kid.
Yes, Jack is awesome, and he's really great for giving a hard time to. Also,
Yeah, he
that's
takes
really
it
good
really
for
well.
us. Yeah, we need somebody to be able to do that too.
Yeah.
And he takes it well. So being the awesome dude that you are, and you showed up at my house today with an adorable Valentine's Day pack.
Yes.
I kind of took it as maybe you were asking me to be your Valentine.
No, did you not hear my disclaimer before I got here?
No, I didn't.
Oh no, I said I walked in. They had a big display of beers for Valentine's Day, and it's a Valentine's Day. And I said, I love beer,
Nice.
and so I got it.
All I heard was I love, and then you brought up the beer, and I saw this beer, and I assumed it was me. And okay, I'm a little let down,
Yeah, you should be.
but I'm really stoked that you brought beer.
No, I love you, brother. It's all out of requirement, though.
Right? Because we're legally obligated. Yeah.
Exactly.
In law, right? In goddamn law. So, tell people what you brought. I'm excited about it.
So this one is the Yeti Imperial Stout. It had a bunch of medals that it said it won on there, and it sounded delicious, so I decided to grab it.
Nice.
I don't know a whole lot. It's Great Divide Brewing.
Have we had anything from them before?
Yes, we have, and I can't remember what it was.
Okay. I was going to say the name sounds familiar.
Yeah,
We've had a lot of beer. I'd
had
be
a
very
lot of
impressed if you could remember every beer we had.
9.5%.
Okay.
So it's big.
Yep.
We poured it. It poured like chocolate milk almost. It was
Yes.
thick. It was super, super thick.
Yeah, and it had that super frothy, thick foamy, almost like a root beer foam, or I mean, like a root beer float foam.
Yes.
Yeah.
It did, and it's still hanging around. And we were going through a whole bunch of technical stuff and just jargon and banter before we started.
We
this.
basically did a cast before the cast.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did a pre-cast.
And staring at our beers the whole time.
Yes. My mouth is salivating. I really want to try it.
Smells amazing. Its color is amazing. It's so dense, so dark. Smells sweet. It smells like a good stout, man.
Yeah.
Just coffee aromas. I shouldn't say flavors. Coffee aromas.
Nose flavors.
Yes, nose flavors.
It smells really rich.
It does. It smells really rich, but
It poured really rich.
poured rich. It said rich on the label somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. This is a wealthy beer.
Yeah, you have to be wealthy to purchase it too.
Yeah. Even though it is a Valentine's Day discount and on sale. I'm
Yeah.
sure it was still not cheap.
No, it wasn't. This was out of that pack. These two were the most expensive.
Yeah. Which I think is it's kind of the fate of beer lately anyway.
It really is.
The price is like crazy.
It really is.
A 6-pack of cans, right? Which I'm not knocking cans or anything is any less. You get the same amount of beer, right? But I'm assuming it must be a little cheaper to make or to give people cans, right? They've got to be saving a little money there because the bottles are like another $1 more.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming there's that difference there. But it was like close to $15 for a 6-pack of cans.
Yeah.
It was insane. It was an Imperial Stout, and it was super yummy. But that's really expensive.
And the problem with it, though, is people have started paying the money for the craft beers.
Yeah.
Because, just face it, it's expensive to make beer. Especially when you have a small, high overhead company.
Yeah.
It's expensive to make beer. You have to charge more for it. They're making a superior product. So that's why it's acceptable to pay that for it. but the big beer is just like fallen in suit and gotten expensive.
Yeah.
They just jack their prices right along with everything else.
Yes.
I don't get it.
I don't get it either. And you'd almost think with more, more out there and in the market, like with the saturation, it could almost drive maybe a little more competition to bring the price down. But it's almost like the opposite has happened, which is crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Like, it's not usually the way things work. The more of something there is, usually the cheaper it gets.
You are dealing in a vice, though.
Yes, that's true.
So
yes, and and as far as this particular vice goes, I would say hands down, beer is my favorite way to consume alcohol.
yes,
Like
far and away my favorite.
Yes, like I mean, I'm not opposed to trying a little bit of something else here and there, but like as far as being able to really drink and enjoy it and drink more than just a little bit of it, beer totally. And there's such a variety of kinds.
Oh, I know.
Just when you stay in the beer range, you can have one way out here on one end of the spectrum and one way over here on the other end of the spectrum, and so much in between. And really, all of it is so good, even though it's drastically different.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
And that's my one thing I always tell people whenever somebody says, "Oh, I don't like beer," I'm like, "You just haven't had the beer you like."
Yes.
I mean, because beer covers such a broad range.
Yeah, I could see unless you're like if somebody says they don't. Again, I always want to kind of think of it almost like coffee, right? Where I do think that there is like an acquired taste for it. Like if you just straight up don't like the flavor of coffee, you're going to be hard pressed to find a coffee that you don't like, right? Like I do think there's an undertone to almost all beer flavor that's kind of there.
Yeah, well, you got you have the malt flavor and you have the yeast flavors.
Yeah,
you're going to have that no matter what you're doing.
Like if you're adamantly against those flavors, then maybe beer isn't for you, and you probably get your vice somewhere else, and I'll give it to you, right? But
I agree with that. But for the most part, it covers such a broad spectrum and such a vast array of flavors that I don't see how somebody could just flat say they don't like it.
Yeah,
with just especially people who have not tried them.
And typically when you hear that somebody, although I was going to say, typically when you hear that somebody doesn't like beer, you hear about them drinking crappy beer.
Yeah.
But then I was going to say that's not always the case, because I have heard people say they don't like beer when they go into the like this. Like if they drink what we're drinking now, this might not be their beer at all. And this is a very extreme example of this type of beer, right?
Oh, yes.
So if this isn't the beer you like, it should not scare you from all beers, because this is a very narrow end of the spectrum of what this is, right? So again, that big range it'd be hard to just pick one out and decide you don't like it.
And not only that, but I mean, you have a big range within each range, or within each variety. I mean, this is the stout, or an imperial stout, and you've got a myriad of other imperial stouts, and they all taste completely different.
Yes, totally.
So it's just like, how do you do this? I don't get it. So
yeah, well, and then again, though, with these crazy prices going on, I could see it discouraging someone, right?
That would probably be the biggest discouragement right there.
Yeah, it's not what are you going to go out and do? You're going to keep spending your $15 on every 6-pack until you find the one you like. That could be really expensive. But even my wife is a good example of the people that where she didn't really like beer at all, and then she has really come around to liking beer, and she's definitely a fan of an IPA, which was what she specifically didn't like in the beginning because they were so bitter, right? And it was harsh for her to drink. But IPAs are so saturated right now, and that is one of the biggest ranges that is out there, right? And so if you find one in there that's not super bitter and has a little bit more of those lighter citrusy tones to it, she absolutely loves it. And and even though it was the one that scared her, it is the one that pulled her back in. So, I mean, that's a perfect example of that. Don't let it discourage you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
She has me buying it anyway, so she's always got these ones to try, so that makes it easier for her. I could see if it was just her, she would have given up, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's no way she would have gone out and kept trying different IPAs. But she turned around and loves them now.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, certain ones she loves.
Yeah, obviously.
Certain ones she still hates. But that's fine, I'll drink them.
We all have those. You have yours, your wheat beers.
Totally. Yes. And I will drink them. I'm still, again, I'm in that boat of I will still try it. Like, there's got to be one out there that I don't hate, and I will try it. And we have had them on the show where I've tried those wheat beers, and right away I'm like, I'm gonna hate this, but then I'll drink it, and it's actually not that bad. Yeah. Should we cheers it and actually drink some beer?
I think we should.
I should have done that a while ago. I couldn't shut up.
Oh, it's fine.
To all the nerds,
Through all the fuzz.
bottoms up.
Let's
Let's get
get
nerd
nerd
buzzed.
That is so thick.
Yeah, it is. Boy, it just like coats your tongue as it goes over.
It does, but it's not like sicky sweet though.
No, it's
It's
very
definitely sweet.
rich.
It's sweet. It's rich.
It's a little bit bittery at the end.
It's
It's like roasty bittery at the end.
oh, it's great.
Yeah.
I love that. It's
This is probably one of the
this is like one step thicker than Old Rasputin.
Yeah, and not as heavy as
Yeah.
Old Rasputin. I think has a weight to it, right? And this one is definitely lighter on your palate. And it's interesting how as it's going over your tongue, you get the different flavor profiles as it travels over your tongue. Like not all beers are that way. Like sometimes they'll like. I'm so bad at describing stuff.
No,
but
it's
so sometimes it like shocks the front of your tongue, but then lingers on the back of it, right? It's like this one is like it really is this nice ride over the whole thing, and you get all those different aspects of it as it travels.
It really is.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like when beer's a little bit of an experience, right?
Completely. This is thick though.
It is very thick,
Holy cow.
but it is still pretty smooth. And I love the aftertaste. It does when it's in your mouth versus after you swallow it. It tastes very different.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that.
It's got a very, 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 very just nutty, chocolatey aftertaste, and then that roasted like coffee flavor.
Yeah, yeah. With that almost that similar kind of bitterness of like a coffee too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
it is
That's
really
good.
It
I can
makes
see why
me-
it's won all those awards.
Yeah, no, it is super good. And really, for being, what'd you say it was 9.5%?
9.5%.
It's not. Again, it's not aggressively sweet. It is rich and it is sweet, but it's not just like unbearably so, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually kind of glad that it doesn't have any sort of a, like real oaky kind of barrely flavor to it, which is something I've been running into with the richer, high percentage beers.
So, what that does is they're making a beer that's so to get a beer that higher percentage, to get that rich of flavors, you have to put more ingredients in. Ingredients cost money,
Yeah,
so it takes a lot more cash to make a big beer than it does small beer. So they're going to have to charge more for it. Once again, we're talking about the big prices. By barrel aging it, you put it in a barrel, adds another layer of flavor, adds time to it, but it also quantifies the time, because it gives you a selling point for your charging as much as you are.
yeah,
So that's why people generally don't see cheaper, thinner beers, which I think would actually probably benefit from the barrel decently. Some of them, not all of them, obviously,
yeah.
but would benefit from the barrel decently, not being put through there because A, it's time, and time costs money,
Yeah.
and
Like you're losing money just because it's sitting in a barrel.
exactly.
Right, like it could be out in someone's belly, and
Well, yeah,
that
it's-
person's money could be in my pocket right now.
Well, it's turnover. I mean,
Yeah.
all businesses are based off of turnover. Your glass business is the same way.
Yeah,
It's all about making product and not holding on to it, getting that product to move.
yeah. Well, and I think that's where,
Like salivate so much. Just
I know it's really yummy.
trying to talk, and I'm just like,
I think that's where so even with the glass company and making art as for a living, right? We don't. Not everything we make, I personally consider art, right? Like you do make the things to pay the bills. And
Yeah.
for me, like I think somebody will probably come in and love it, and for them it's totally this work of art, which is awesome, and I so appreciate that they recognize
well,
that in it.
it's a work of art, and that it's been done by a skilled hand, and then you can't recreate it yourself.
Yeah, and I almost think of that as more like a craft, right? Like it doesn't have as much of it for me personally because I am the one making it. It doesn't have as much of that artistic quality to it, where it's kind of this more of a rehearsed thing that I've done over and over. But I could see that with some of the beers where you have the ones that you have to make that pay the bills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the ones that are the more personal to you that you've invested more in, that maybe you would stick in a barrel or you would do these other steps too. And those to the craftsman, the beer craftsman, is more art to him, right? It's the one that he's made a relationship with.
Exactly.
I always think of real art as something that the artist has made a relationship with. It's not he's invested
There's
invested in
passion
that
put
piece.
into what he's doing.
Totally. Yeah.
Exactly.
The other things are there to pay the bills, which are totally also relevant because they facilitate the passion piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like without those.
So there was a beer fest that came on the tail of Hempfest in Seattle, and one of the bands that's no longer together, the Handful, was playing for it. They had Georgetown Brewing was there, and they were the ones that were hosting it. Their deal, they got all my tokens because their brewers came up with this brew. When they made it like a month, whatever the minimum time was to get it to this ready to go.
Yeah.
They made it for that specifically, and he says, "Yep, I was up at 2:00 in the morning, decided that this is what we're gonna do, and I threw it together, and I was going along, and this sounds like it'd be really good in here like this, and it's just none of it was measured exactly, none of it was put together. There was no written recipe. They could never recreate it again.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first beers that I ever picked up, and you just like tasted it, and it's like, this is, like you said, this is art. This is somebody's soul put into.
Oh, for sure. I think whenever you're in the glass shop, I always get asked by everybody, what's your favorite piece, right, to make? Like, what's your favorite thing to make? And my answer is always anything for like the first few times, right? Because those times are when I grow as an artist, but when I'm learning whatever medium I'm working with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it is that you establish that relationship. It becomes more personal for you as the creator because more is happening on both ends of it, right? And you're meeting in the middle. And I love it when that happens and when it works out really, really, just really, really well. And it is just art, right? Like you couldn't recreate it almost because of that.
And I can attest to this because whenever I've come in and like looking over your pieces and stuff, my favorite ones that I just go pick up off the table are usually your guys' first one or twos.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, those aren't the most appealing because they're funky, right? But that's what makes them cool to me is like, no, that's the glass doing what it does, and that's me trying to work with it more, instead of bossing it around. And so it has more personality to me, and there's more of a relationship there. It's almost like this isn't really art, I guess, although I would consider people that are really good at it, it's totally their craft. But I remember like when I was in high school and I was skateboarding, the first time that you land like a heel flip or a kick flip or something, right? And you do it right, it's almost like it doesn't happen. It's like you do it and it's like the board moves under your feet and then you're suddenly there. You don't have to check your balance. It's almost like you never left, right? And when those moments happen and they're so effortless, that is like a personal art moment for you. Like it really is, right? It's like you just in such a balance with the thing that you're working at, and you don't hit those all the time. And when they happen, take a minute to like soak that in, man. Just do it.
I never got that good. I could do it ollie up a curb, and then curb height ollie, and then a pop shove it. That's all I can do.
Oh yeah, but even like that, like when I spent all day, out on the road, back and forth, trying to make one land, and I had landed them, but it was always struggles, and balance check and like, I almost ate it and whatever. When you hit it perfect, it just happens.
I could do that with a pop shove it. I could get to where I could just flip the board from the back to front, like it was effortless.
Yeah, and you just suddenly you're back on it, and you're just still going, right? And it feels so good. And I think that's like a weird way to kind of sum it up, but I think the moments where you get that feeling is like real, true art happening. It really is, where it's almost effortless because you're not fighting the thing you're working with. You're working together. It is like this marriage of working with each other. Totally true. And I some beers I'm in the same boat where it's just like, wow, right? Like something magical happened here. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and you can tell they cared when they made this. Mm-hmm. Definitely has that. So that I can't remember it was Mary Jane's something they called it, and for the Georgetown.
Yeah. But
it was just that one run only, just for that deal, and it was like I hit one stand before that, got their beer, like okay, it's good beer. I hit that one, like this is amazing, and I went and talked to the brewers a little bit about it, and so just questioned them a little bit, and they're like, yeah, this is what it is, blah blah blah. I'm like, you guys gonna make this an actual run? No, I couldn't recreate this if I tried.
Yeah.
It was like 2:00 in the morning and I was high as fuck.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
okay, well.
Well, and that's almost like those moments are also subjective to the consumer too, or the person, the audience also, right?
Yeah.
Like it can be very different for them versus the person that made it. But there are those people that come along and will recognize there's some magic in there. Like what happened? Like what's the story, right? Like you can tell there's a story that goes around it. The last art show I went to, whenever I go to an art show or something with my dad, I always walk around and I always tell them, okay, pick your favorite, right? Like whatever it is, it can be anything, it could be a 3D piece, a 2D piece, like whatever, just out of the gallery, pick a favorite. It's not a knock to anything else in the gallery. It's just the piece that speaks to you personally, right? And we were walking around and there was a lot of like paintings of different birds and things. And I noticed there was one on the wall that was kind of, almost had a, like a secret Nim, kind of like a Don Bluth, kind of like, kind of eerie vibe to it, right? And I saw it, and I went around, and there were all these other birds that the same guy did, but they didn't look that way at all. And I kept going back to that one. I was like, that's my favorite, right? There's something about that just like kind of speaks to me. And when the artist came in, I mentioned to him, I was like, hey man, I always play this game, and you won. Like it's cool, right? Like I'm an artist here too, whatever. But I got to ask you about this piece. Like it's just something about it.
Yeah.
And he said that all those other birds that he had done, he was like, all those have been painted over like 15 times. The one that you like is this idea I had on a little scratch piece of paper, and I'd always wanted to do. And finally one day I said, I'm just going to do it. And he said, that is a one-shot painting. I've never touched it again. I didn't go and do anything to it. It just kind of happened. And it was like, you could feel that energy off it. It was really cool. I was stoked to hear that was the story, right?
Nice.
Yeah. The rest, it was the one that he was also as invested in. So it was kind of cool. Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
if you go to an art gallery or something, play the game. It's just kind of fun.
No wonder you like Persona.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I'll have to do that. That's pretty cool.
It's kind of fun to do. And again, it's important to emphasize that it doesn't mean that any of the rest weren't awesome. There were so many cool things there. There were lots of runners up, but for some reason, that one just kept grabbing me. So it was kind of interesting.
I think my favorite piece you've done yet has been that first octopus.
Yeah, those are tricky.
That was it was the most. I don't know how to put it. It was amazing how, if you've ever been diving and just see how an octopus reacts and everything else, and just the way it feels in the water. I mean, that's what it's. You look at that, and that's all I see. Is what it is.
And it's funny because it has that energy to it because we didn't know what we were doing, right? Like we were totally trying to make it work without forcing it on that piece.
Yeah.
It just had this life to it. My favorite is totally the big platter that I have in my living room, and it's because it's supposed to be nice and flat and round. It's not at all. It has like this bulbous side, and the lip was thick on one part that's stretched out and everything. But for me, that's what makes it super cool. I couldn't make that again if I tried, right? Like that was such a marriage of me and my dad struggling to make it into something, and it kind of got to do what it wanted to do, and it's awesome. Like it just has this life energy to it. So that is one of my favorite pieces of all time.
Nice.
And it's also kind of cool because it was the two of us to make it. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Has all three of our energies in it. Maybe that's why, right?
Yeah, you're in your dad's.
It sounds like crazy hippie talk, but I really feel
No,
like
true.
it's all true. It totally is.
It really is.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk later about it. If you get into the whole spiritual thing and energies and everything, it's pretty interesting how that, like what you're saying there, just ties into what that is exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely think there's there's a truth to that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can. I think that can just happen in interactions, even. Like you can just one person can change the mood of a whole room.
Totally.
Right? For the good or for the bad.
I was going to say, I've seen you with both.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
I try not to affect a room.
Speaking of personal things and things that interest us, do you mind if I segue a little bit into? You kind of wanted to talk about podcasts.
Oh, well, just generally speaking, because
imagine that on a podcast.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. By the way, maybe before we get too far, I would, as always, we would like to thank everybody that listens and promote our favorite podcast, which of course is always our own. So please, follow us on Twitter, all the social medias. It's all Nerdbuzzed. You can go to nerdbuzzed.com. Listen to all of our stuff there, 100% free.
As opposed to any other percentage of free.
Thanks, Jay.
Yeah.
And we are really, really close to getting 100 subscribers on our YouTube. We have 99.
I know.
99.
I know.
Will somebody please subscribe? I was thinking the other day, this likes and shares and that type of thing are basically your digital tipping. Like they really are,
Yes, they
right?
are.
Like it doesn't cost you anything. If we do something that entertains you and it's just that one show, by all means, man, throw us a like. It really helps us out, or share it. If maybe you watch a couple shows and you like it, maybe we'll do a couple more. So maybe subscribe.
Or if we did something you didn't like, let us know.
Yeah, no, I'd love to kind
Totally
of
let us know. We'll
yeah.
not stop doing what we're doing. But, well, no.
Yeah.
But we'll totally give you the shout out and say no.
Yeah, right. No, I would love to. All the feedback is really, really appreciated. It's a lot of work, and it's good to know what people think out there. And we do really appreciate the follows and the shares and likes and all that. I know we constantly say it, but it really does mean something. So thank you to everybody that has subscribed, all 99 people so far. Mm-hmm. And if we could get one more.
Yeah.
One more.
One more. We can actually say.
I mean, I'd love to get more than that, but we need at least one.
Well, so we get the vanity
URL.
Vanity URL at 100. Then was it 500 that you get the there's something else. There's another level.
Oh, maybe. I haven't even looked that far.
I know.
I know. Focused in on that 100.
Yeah,
and I bet even when it happens, YouTube's going to be like, oh, yeah, that's cool that you got that, but there's also this other cat. I would not be surprised for the next hoop that they want me to jump through. But so far, I keep looking at their criteria for the vanity URL. That's the only box that's not checked. So, one more, people. Throw us a bone.
Yes.
I've been trying to be better about that myself, actually, with like other people's stuff. If I listen to it, or I've been trying to be better at following and liking and sharing. And
I'm not gonna lie, it probably took me to about a year ago before I was like, we keep asking you that, but I'm not doing it to other people.
Yeah.
And so I got so many people. I've muted a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But they still have the like and they have the follow.
Oh yeah, totally. I think that's completely
Please
an option.
don't do that to us. But
Yeah. Right. Well, and if you are doing it for some
exactly.
reason, I would love to hear why. And
yeah.
Again, I don't know that it means it will totally change, but it'll give me something to think about. I'm always
Exactly.
curious to hear feedback. So,
and like I said,
please do.
You can do that too. Like I said, you can do the subscribe, and if you're getting stuff that you don't like, you can totally mute it.
Yeah.
I do that with Spotify and especially Spotify,
Which we're on now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize we weren't.
I didn't even realize it was as easy as it was. Gary was like, what the hell's your problem? I can't listen to your show while I do my nerdy stuff on my Xbox. You should be on Spotify. And apparently he had told me twice, right? And I didn't pay attention to it because, again, he berates me with messages, which is awesome. But and then I scrolled back in the feed and I found it. And he's like, yeah, dude, do that. And so I went in. It was like literally click, click, click. And it just did it. We had to get approved by them, but that was like 2 hours, right? Like approved pretty quickly. We have a pretty big backlog, I think, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Once you're on iTunes, I've noticed a lot of people kind of look at that as like, okay, right? Which the process to get on there is not super like rigorous either, but I think that's like
they have a format though that you have to meet.
Yes, totally.
So what is it? You have to have an intro and outro, a logo, and
I think then you have to submit like 3 episodes, something. It's been a
Something
while
like that.
since I've done it,
Yeah.
but you have to submit more than one anyway. And I don't know what they do to actually review it. I doubt they sit there and listen to the whole thing, but they seem to be a little more rigorous. So I think if you've qualified for them, other people kind of are like, like they're the test, right? For everybody else, iTunes is the test. I don't know if that's true at all, but that's kind of the vibe I get.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, we're going to be doing that for another one here soon. Which ideally is why the whole podcast thing is why I kind of got listening to a bunch of other podcasts.
Is for yeah,
because we're going to be doing. Have we mentioned it before?
it hasn't been officially, the after party hasn't been released yet.
Okay, it has not been released yet. Can we say it now or just
I don't want to say it because I like that Mick says it first.
yeah.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
Yeah, okay.
That's perfectly fine. But
we won't. At least don't say the name. Let Mick be
yeah,
the first
yeah,
one to say the
yeah.
name. You can
so-
describe it or do whatever else you
That's
want.
what I'm
but
gonna do.
Save the name.
That's exactly what I'm gonna do.
He hates the name, so that's why we make Mick say it.
I
When
think
we start
he's
the
coming
show,
around finally though.
yeah. Well, I think when we start the show, he says the name, right?
yeah.
Like he is the guy that says the name.
Yes.
On every episode, he'll say it first.
Welcome to.
Yeah. It'll be awesome because he was not super stoked about it at first.
That's the only reason why we jumped on it.
No, totally. Yes, it makes it so much fun.
So if it's something you don't want, don't say you don't want it.
Especially around this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, like I said, it's going to be another live action D&D or live play D&D or actual play, not live play, but actual play.
Yeah.
D&D session.
Live play, would that be like cosplay D&D?
No.
Would it
Live,
be like be in front of the green
no,
screen?
live play would
actually
be
doing it?
like we're live episodes, live
Okay.
presentation. We're not doing that. We're doing pre-recorded, at least initially.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to work out best because
We're all new.
well, some of us are new. Some of us are we're getting it down. We're getting the practicing. You've improved in just the 2 rounds we played,
Oh yeah.
like immensely.
Yeah. I've been trying to figure out my character more and not fight the character that I rolled because it's not who I want to play.
I think you would have been better off just picking your character.
But I love the part of it because
I know.
I completely random rolled everything.
I know you did.
Yeah, I was adamant about that. That's why I'm the only girl.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which Eric's already got a fix for.
Awesome. I like that he's going to try to change that for me. Or at least make it work.
He's going to make it work.
Okay.
He's going to make it work. And once you hear the name, it'll make sense. Trust me. But
Yeah.
But anyway, like I said, so we've started doing this, and through the 2x4 of life that smacks you upside the head sometimes, our launch for this has not happened yet.
Yeah.
Which is nice because it's giving us a chance to polish some other things to this and
Practice.
and round out.
We've been
other
scrimmaging till
stuff.
then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, you get these guys to play some of their characters and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Big thing though with the sausage.
Almost said it. Don't say it.
Almost said it. Almost said it. Big thing though with the other one though is Mick wants to avoid the explicit tag.
The explicit tag? What do you mean?
The using curse words and.
Oh, I think we can probably get away with that. We've cursed on our show before, and
once or twice is an okay slip, but
I think who's going to be the worst at it?
I think Eric actually.
Oh, Eric, huh?
I think Eric's going to be the worst for it.
Okay. Yeah, because even when we've had Adam on our show, I never tell him that you're not supposed to curse, and he will from time to time. It's not that bad, right? And it's never. I always look at cursing.
A slip up is one thing, but when you've got. Well, I really don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy.
It's not me!
But I'm sorry, but when you've got a freaking gangster rap track for your entire show, practically,
yeah,
that's not acceptable.
No. Who has the gangster rap track?
No, I'm just saying, if your show has as many curse words as a gangster rap track...
Oh, yeah. No, it's not acceptable. No, I totally agree. Well, and I definitely look at the swearing thing as... like curse words, I think, again, they are those red flags that'll pop up, like, in your podcast or whatever, and you don't want too many of them. But there's a big difference between it just, like, popping in conversation and, like, being pointed at something.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, they don't come across as quite as threatening, maybe I should say. But I totally agree. We try to avoid it on our show. We'll see what happens, because we're all going to be drinking.
Oh, I
and
know.
We're all going to be getting goofy and goofing around. I bet I will find a way to offend people without swearing at all.
I know you will.
Yeah.
I think we actually had this conversation already once.
Yeah, on the other show. And we will release that, yes.
But anyway, like I said, so in this waiting period that we've been having, I've been playing for a while. Mick's played for a little bit. You guys hadn't played at all yet.
No, Adam had played, but he's played other campaigns with other people and whatever. Mm-hmm. I've never ever played any sort of a campaign D&D thing. We did our Dork Night thing, but that was basically
it was just combat encounter.
That's all it was. It was a big tournament. We roll our stats. We would go into this big arena thing and fight. We would talk smack to each other beforehand, and we'd create these really brief backstories, right? You got a little taste of kind of what we did, but it was a wham, bam, kill the guy, move on to the next one, right?
I still thought it was hilarious at the end of it. You guys all right, so I did this. I got to roll for placement. Okay, that's it.
Oh, yeah, because we'd always take our guys we drew, and we wanted to put the scars on them, right? Because sometimes the guys come back, and they're all scarred and messed up, or they're missing an arm or something, right? That was one of the best parts. We loved
like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I said, Mick actually kind of asked was saying somebody needs to run it, and I offered to do so.
Yeah.
And I'd never DM'd before, the prospect of it never even crossed my mind before that.
Yeah.
And so in an effort to try and figure out what to do, I started looking for D&D podcasts. Actual play podcasts, and started listening to them and stuff. And I found several of them that I really like. A lot of them love the guys' story, the way the DM runs the games and all that's great. But the banter or RP value wasn't that great, or just the recording was bad.
Yeah.
And I found a couple of them are pretty solid. One that I'm sure everybody knows is the Adventure Zone. That's a big one. They really don't play D&D though.
I mean, as far as the show, they're not really playing D&D.
No,
I do think it's almost like D&D with training wheels, right?
It really is, but they're telling a story.
Yeah,
and they're using the dice to create an atmosphere, but it's not really the actual play.
Yeah,
they're not really playing D&D.
When you sent me the different shows to check out for our D&D show, when I listened to them, like, to be honest with you, I think that was close to my favorite, and I think it's also because I don't know what I'm doing in D&D, and again, it was a really non-abrasive, easy way for somebody that doesn't know what's going on with it to get that real casual experience with it, which I enjoyed, and it was really easy to absorb. When I went on to some of the other ones, it almost, even though I was only listening to like the first 2 episodes, it felt like I was listening to like episode 50, and they'd already engaged. It's like I was lost a little bit.
Did you check out the Glass Cannon at all?
Not that one. I listened to
There Will Be Dungeons?
Yes, There Will Be Dungeons and Adventures. And There Will Be Dungeons, you could tell they definitely had done more of it, right?
Yeah.
Or at least...
Well, the only one who hadn't played D&D before was Scott Johnson, so Nash Maggard.
Okay.
Of the Solar Mines.
Yeah. I enjoyed some of their banters and their stories. I loved that they had a girl in it.
Yes.
When there's a big group of... I wish we had a girl that would be willing to sit around with a bunch of old nerds, right?
Yeah.
And not be creeped out. That's hard to find that chick. But I love the balance that, like, having the different, even just the different vocal ranges of people is really nice to have when you're listening to something. And I think sometimes having a girl, even if they're not the main person, but they kind of interject from time to time, it does balance the tone of the cast so much. But her reactions are different, and she plays along so well, and like I was really pleased that she was there and part of it. It makes it feel more accessible for everybody else.
She's hilarious. The more you listen to, the more hilarious she gets. By the way,
awesome.
And I don't know what she did to piss Bo off, but Bo just brutalizes her character so bad.
Yeah,
I don't know how far you got, but
no, I think I've listened to like 3 episodes or something.
They're still figuring their characters out.
Yeah,
they're still
totally.
They're still raw. I mean, that one took probably about 5 episodes before they really got into their characters and really got to owning what they were.
Yeah,
Nash Maggard never owns his character.
I think that's why the other one, the Adventure Zone, was easier for me to listen to, because it kind of just jumps into that stuff a little more quickly, and it doesn't focus on so much of that lore and that investment in it. Now,
see, the Adventure Zone has a lot of table talk.
Okay.
So there's a lot of side banter going on that's not the story.
Yeah.
And it's the interactions between the people outside. So you're constantly getting pulled out of the immersion into their table side and then back into the immersion into the...
Yeah.
And the only one that really does that for There Will Be Dungeons is Scott Johnson.
Okay.
I
don't remember who any of these people
He's
are.
Nash Maggard of the Solar Mines, the wizard that's like, oh, shit, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't want to kill the lizard.
Okay. Yeah. Which they hate. I remember they hated him right away. The lizard. Yeah.
No, the lizard was cool.
Wasn't it the lizard man or something?
Yeah,
they put the cloud over his junk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I did listen to like 3 of them.
Yeah, that's prestidigitation, by the way.
Okay, and I did notice that when I was listening to it. And I want to go through, change all my spells. I didn't even know I had this library of spells that I could swap in and out. And where we stopped in our story, that's where I'm at. So I'm going to, like, I want to make my guy,
so you guys just
my chick, as much catered to me, my playstyles as I can with all that stuff.
But...
And I just didn't know. Like, it's hard to explain and experience.
Your cantrips, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Your cantrips are innate. But you have prestidigitation.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to start using that because I get more what it means. Maybe that's why I like the...
Any minor wonder.
Yeah.
So you can't really affect anything, but you can like anything that can fit in essentially a 1 foot by 1 foot cube.
Yeah.
So
that is almost like has like a hologram quality to it, right? Like it's not really there, but you can
you can create it like a weird noise, or you can light a torch or snuff out a torch, or splash some water, or make something dirty, or make something clean, or do stuff like that.
Yeah. I would almost recommend to people, if you're not into the D&D thing, or maybe you don't know if you are, I would recommend the Adventure Zone first. And like, if you're at all interested in that, and then you find that the lore part of it is the cool part for you, then I would totally check out There Will Be Dungeons, right? Like, because it is more of that. It's almost like, like I think video games are the same way. It's like, how much of an RPG do you want to play? Like, do you want to have to go around and read all the manuals and like get into the lore? Like, maybe that's the appealing part, like, which totally is for some people. But then other people want more of like a real time fighting RPG, where it's more, which I think that's almost more the Adventure Zone, where it's more casual and goofing around a little bit.
I can tell you right now, Eric's going to be more of the no table talk. We're going to be in character while we're at the table thing. Yeah,
I'm interested when we all get together, because I think we're just going to all have to compromise a little bit, right?
Oh,
because
that's
we're going to be way into table talk.
That's a DM's job. I checked you guys a couple of times, but for the most part, I allow it.
Yeah, you did awesome. Like, especially for somebody, maybe it's a benefit to us also that you hadn't really done it before, because you're learning as we're going, and so we're both adapting kind of to each other at the same time.
Well,
but you did really awesome at, like, these guys are goofballs and they're idiots. I'm going to let them be goofball idiots, and the game will happen, right? And when that part comes up, I'm going to step up and dictate some things.
I still want you to find your item, because
I really want to find my item.
That's the most goofball idiot item I made.
Nice. I love that. I want to be a goofball idiot. If you have watched the show, you know that.
Don't get me wrong. It's incredibly powerful, but...
Yeah. No, I'm into it. I like that you embrace that side of it, and you're not in there to like to squash to make it a pain in the ass for anybody, right? Like, I don't like the idea. I want to have fun. So I want to drink, get goofy, and just everybody banter and rip on each other a little bit and have a good time.
When it came up that I was gonna run the practice games, essentially, I was like, okay, I've never done this before. What am I gonna do? So I hit several different sites and all this other stuff, talking about what to do and how to DM, and the biggest thing I got from it was learn your table. Yeah. Learn the people you're playing with, and play so that everybody's having fun.
Basically, you're the host, right? Like, any host needs to know what kind of party they're hosting. You like that? That's a double party meaning there. And and I think that it is a job to be a good host, right? Like, anybody can throw a party, but to be a true good host, you got to know the audience, your guests. Mm-hmm. And I think so far from what we've done, which I think is pretty basic still so far, but I've really enjoyed it, and you've done a really good job of knowing your guests, right? Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it.
I'm having fun. I'm actually having more fun gaming than I thought I would.
Yeah, and I'm assuming because you've been playing with other guys, your side project, I don't want to get into that now, but your other nerd friends you hang out with. It's got to be way different than that, I would think.
Oh, it's completely different. I do not like the way he DMs. He's a very railroad DM. This is his linear story. Yeah. But that said, he is so much better at building a web of the way things affect things and affecting other things than I will ever be.
And I think that's going to be tricky when considering who you're playing with, right? Like, the first time we played, we just were kind of following the basic Dungeons Dragons like starter book, right, to do whatever, and we were just supposed to go to the damn cave, right? Was like our mission. We spent over an hour not even leaving the bar we started in because we tried to sleep with anybody we could. We bought drinks for everybody. We got drunk, and like, I could just imagine, because I have no idea what the story is, but I can just imagine you going, you guys are such idiots. Will you leave the damn bar, right? Well, we were like an hour and a half into this, and nothing had happened.
To be fair, though, the only reason we did the bar first, that was supposed to be, we weren't even supposed to make it to town. In the as far as the beginning thing goes, but Mick wasn't able to join us yet. Okay. Because he was putting his kid down or something. Yeah. And which is a bad term, by the way, but people use it all the time.
They do use it all the time. I'm gonna go put my kid down, and I'm always like, finally. It's like, You're constantly doing that. Would you get it right this time? It's terrible. I don't need that.
But he had to go put his kid to bed.
Yeah.
And so we were waiting for him. So, and like I said, we were getting started. We were playing and going along, and I figured he would get back sooner. And so I had you guys see the carriage and see all that stuff happen and stuff. But then I was like, but you need to deliver this to town, right?
Yeah.
And you guys totally bought it. Thank you.
Well, and I think that we will, as we play, us as the guests will start to realize those little hints you're giving more, right? Because we were so not even paying attention to any of that and just wanting to screw around.
Well, it's got to
and
be your
goof off,
decision,
right?
I mean,
yeah,
I don't want to be the guy that's like, so you guys are here now, and this is why you're there.
Yeah,
you know. So and whatnot, and I'm just, I don't know. I had you go to the town because Mick wasn't there yet, so the bar thing actually worked out in favor, other than the fact that you guys just started your carousing event.
Yeah.
Which I thought did handle pretty decently.
Yeah, I think it all went together really well, actually. Yeah.
For just being made up 100% on the fly, I thought that went really well.
Yeah. Well, and even because again, Mick had to go do something, and that's gonna be classic Mick from now on. That's just classic Mick. We love you, Mick, but that's classic. But even after he came back and we went to do it the second time, because we kept playing for a while, you did a really good job of bringing him back in there too. Nothing was abrasive about it. We didn't have to sit there and catch him up on everything that had happened. I mean, real quick, but nothing. You don't need to know the specifics. This is what happened real quick. Now we're doing this, and we all dove back into it, which was awesome. And I think there's a little bit more of that kind of Adventure Zone vibe to that a little bit,
Yes.
where it's more casual, maybe I should say. Is that a good word for it?
Yeah, and it's like your boss encounter.
Yeah.
That was totally Adventure Zone.
Yeah.
I went straight to Adventure Zone for that.
Yeah.
Just for Mick.
Yeah.
Because it was the same story.
Yeah. No, I think basically D&D is like old man, not that you have to be old to do it, but it's like old man pretending playing superheroes and stuff, or knights running around in the yard and making forts and all that stuff. But now we're old and we don't want to get up and actually do all that stuff, so we get to pretend and do it all at the table together, right? But it brings back that feeling of like, I'm going to grab a stick and that's my sword, and these other little ones are dynamite I'm throwing at these things, and pine cones are grenades, and we're going to build forts and run around, right? It's like that level of imagination.
And that level of imagination you can put into
table.
this, and we can incorporate however you want.
Yeah.
And if you guys have ideas of something you want to do, I can't say it's going to happen that session or right away. I can probably figure out how to work it in.
Yeah. I think the only...
in fact, I got a friend who's going to join us for our next one.
Awesome. Yeah, no, so. I'm into it. I'd like to meet other nerdy people. I think if we bring this back into like an other podcast thing, one thing I have enjoyed that I've been trying to embrace a little bit, especially more recently, with the whole podcasting thing, is that there's a community side to the podcasting.
There is.
And a lot of the people out there are really cool. Like, it's like any community, right? You get, again, it's like what we were saying about beers. There's wide ranges in that spectrum.
Well, there's elitists and everything.
Yeah, there's all that other stuff. But there is a really big community out there, podcasters, that are really into supporting other podcasters, right? Mm-hmm. And so I've been dabbling in kind of reaching out to a few more of those people. I'd like to get some guests on that are other podcasters and just kind of, talk about our nerdy thing, do it
so we
casually.
can get that
drink
one
some
more
beer.
follower?
Yeah, right? Get that one more. Come on. Tell a friend. But I think in the podcasting, I totally agree. I think one thing that will turn me off right away is poor audio quality. And I think before any sort of video thing, or I always think of a video part or anything like that as a bonus, whereas the audio should come first, because my favorite way to listen to a podcast, I really don't listen to a bunch of them. But when I do is when I'm driving around, right? And I don't drive a lot, so it's hard for me to get that time in.
I do them at work, just playing at work while I'm in the background. So
I've been thinking about trying to incorporate that at work, where I'm like, hey, Dad, can I get like in the morning, give me like an hour that I can listen to a podcast or something? And my dad's super supportive with that kind of thing, and really willing to listen to
No,
whatever.
it's smooth jazz all the time.
No, that's my bartering chip. I'm going to say, if you listen to 1 hour-long podcast with me in the morning, I'll give you 2 hours of smooth jazz.
There you go.
Right? I'm willing to do that because I would like to listen to other ones. And I enjoy the part of podcasting where, like, as far as listening, where you kind of get to know the personalities of the people that are on the podcast a little bit. And that's, in a way, more important to me than really what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Is almost how they're talking about it.
That was Adventure Zone for me.
Yeah, you think so?
I got more invested with the McElroys than I did their characters.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and it's the other way around with There Will Be Dungeons.
Yeah.
I'm so much more invested with their characters. I try to listen to some of their other podcast stuff, and I like some of their other podcasts and all that, but I'm having a real hard time finding a way of connecting with them other than their D&D play and characters they played.
Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely say if everybody wants to be a podcaster, right? Like whatever, we jumped on that bandwagon too, and I've had other people come up to me and ask me about it. Recently, I met up with a friend of mine who was like, "Yeah, I just found out about your show." He was follower number 96, I think he said.
Okay.
So it's like, and I was like, "Dude, it's been growing since then. It's awesome." And but he was telling me about it. He's like, it's really cool, and I like it. I want to be a guest. Like, he's totally down to come and be a guest with us. He's a little younger, so which is also fun to get the different age range and their opinions. That's one thing I really like about podcasting. Is that you can get exposed to different age groups too, right?
Oh, yeah.
And especially with the stuff we talk about with all the nerdy things, I think the age groups influence it a lot. And
I mean, just look at the difference between us and Jack.
oh, totally. That's one of my favorite things about having Jack here is that he is that. I don't want to like discredit him, but in like some ways, I don't mean it harshly, I guess is what I mean. He can come across as a little naive when we first start talking about stuff, right? But then when he starts getting into it and you get his perspective from a younger age group, it's like then I feel a little bit naive from my perspective, right? And it's cool that we like educate each other. And so that's something that when I've been listening to podcasts that I've been latching onto is getting that other perspective in there and hearing it with passion from somebody else, even though it's not the perspective that I look at it from or that I find the passion in, but you can hear it in them and they really care about it. It's made me more aware that just because I don't necessarily agree with the opinion of somebody else out there, it doesn't mean that it isn't the thing that they're in love with, right? And like,
Yeah.
I think making a podcast is one of the most vulnerable things you can do if you're honest about it. Right?
Oh, yeah.
You're giving your opinion on something. You're putting it out there for the world to just berate you back and just tear you apart, right?
And to be fair, it is the internet, and that's what the internet's
That's
for.
anything on the internet is that way, right? But I think if somebody is really honestly podcasting, they're offering up a side of themselves for the world to absorb, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've really learned through this whole process that you can have your opinions. They should be validated in some way. Like you need to know why you feel that way. But then I think it should also come with knowing that just because it's your opinion doesn't mean that other people don't have the opposite opinion, whether that's good or bad, right? Like it's you should come across it somewhat with an open mind and realize that just because it's not your favorite doesn't mean that it isn't somebody else's favorite, right? Not that it means you have to love everything, right? I still hate Fortnite, but
Yeah, well, like I said, they're all into the Blizzard stuff.
Who?
The There Will Be Dungeons guys.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, they're way into Blizzard stuff and the core heroes and all that kind of stuff. And I actually kind of had a couple of good conversations with cousin John, Kojak.
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh, you know those guys? I'm like, well, yeah, but I know them from this. Like, oh, I didn't know they did that. And then we just had this total...
Oh, so he's actually played... he's played games with them?
No, he's met a couple of them at BlizzCon.
Oh, okay.
So,
Nice.
and he listens to Scott Johnson's morning stream and then the other stuff. So
Yeah. It's cool that with podcasting, there's so many podcasts out there, and you can find one that directly caters to the thing that you're into. And then also you can get maybe that other perspective of the thing that you're into, which really honestly I think makes you a better fan of whatever that thing is, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're so nerdy obsessed on whatever the thing is that you're into that you can't see past your own viewpoint of it, but then you start to kind of absorb other other people that are also into it that have these different ways of looking at it, I think it makes you a better fan. Really, it does. It broadens your perspective, which is cool. I've been enjoying that part about listening. I've been listening to some other, I think I gave them a shout out on the last show, the Superhero Speak guys.
Yeah.
Which I think they're fun. They have some good banter on their show, and I enjoy that part of it and getting their opinions on things. And then the drinking the movies, which is not
done yet.
They're so Siskel and Ebert about their stuff, which I mean in such a complimentary way. But I think they love movies that we would also like, and they love them from such a different perspective, right? And it's kind of cool to hear that perspective from them when they're also loving it just like we would, but we love it for such a different reason, right? So I would love to get together with them and have them and just talk about that. That would be kind of cool. But they're not like
so
the...
if we got into like a serious movie review show,
yeah,
they'd be down here and be like talking about like, so in the third act, I love how they brought this up and all this. And
they get into some stuff like that.
I know, and I'm gonna be here like this. It good. I like when he come out punch dude.
Yeah, well, I think that
I'm serious. That's how I'm gonna sound. That's comparatively.
Well, I think I would be kind of in that boat too, right? Where I mean, come on, my favorite movie is Top Gun, so right? It's like I think it has a lot of good points, but I mean that tells you how I'm looking at movies, right?
Oh yeah, you're looking at the butts,
right? Totally. But at the same time, I think I've listened to it and they will say things like that, but then there's always these moments that happen where I'm like, oh, but I could totally talk about this part of it. Like this part of what they're saying speaks to me, just not quite as eloquently.
Yeah.
But they seem like cool guys. They're actually local.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Nice.
I'll mention it in our post with this. We'll see if they get back to us. If they do, awesome. If they don't, that's awesome too. I wish them the best.
Hope and Varel are actually local for Derby Dungeons.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other guy, they're just down in Seattle.
Yeah,
so.
same with Kyle and Kristen.
Nice. Yeah. No, I'm totally stoked to kind of expand our podcast friend net a little bit and try to get to know some more other podcasters and kind of broaden our podcasting horizon, see how it goes.
I think I'm going to go to PodCon next year.
Really? Where's that at?
Seattle.
Okay, that's not bad.
No.
I don't mind driving down there. I just drove down there the other day in the shitty weather. Oh, I swore. The snowy weather.
Yes.
Same letters, I just mixed them up.
Yeah.
Same number of letters, I just mixed them. Yeah, my beer's working.
I got you.
My beer's working. I do think, as far as people that absorb the podcast, like I said, I do think it is a when you do it honestly, I think it is a vulnerable place to put yourself.
Yeah.
Right? It just is. And again, I think those likes and those shares and all that stuff, they really are your digital tipping. And if you like something that somebody does, I'm assuming like for us, it means something when like my phone blings and somebody liked our post that isn't us, right? Or our other podcast friends, which is awesome. I love it when they do it too. But yeah, if you listen to something that somebody else likes, I am all for encouraging you to go and like and share their stuff too. Mm-hmm. It really will mean a lot to those people. Do it.
Definitely. And I said, something it took me a long time to get into doing, but I do. I throw those likes out there like crazy now.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot better about it too. And like you said, doesn't mean you have to, you can mute things and like turn off your chimes and whatever and then check in at your own leisure. But it really does mean a lot to people out there that are putting out their...
And it's also their basis for monetizing if they choose to.
Yeah.
If they don't have them, they don't... I mean, it's potentially a yes or no from an advertiser.
Yeah. I would, and I guess if I was to like, I feel weird like trying to give any podcasting tips because I feel like we're still learning every day, right?
Oh yeah.
But definitely I would say that audio, man, is so important. I think it's the first thing, and it's the that you'll probably get listened to, and the first way. And I think it's the first thing
you get judged on.
Yeah, and it's the first thing that could turn somebody off, right? And I don't know how many people. There's a lot of great free programs out there. One of them is Audacity, and I think, like if I had for the ones I've been listening to, I've been trying to kind of absorb more nerdy ones. And one thing I notice in a lot of them that I want to say maybe they're using Audacity, which is one of the free audio recording programs. and they're so quick to use some sort of a like noise canceling filter that will create
the
like
digital filters.
Yeah, and I think the more you do like that, and the more you use digital, the more it sounds digital, right? Like it sounds less organic, right? And it can create a.
That's what we started out with.
Oh,
That's what
totally. We
started with.
learned that lesson pretty quickly, though. Like we went from purchasing all this digital stuff to make it work to going, we sound like robots, right? Like your S's will start sounding weird. When you try to like filter those, it's like for some reason it'll bring those out. When there's like static and stuff, and you try to filter it, it'll suddenly give people robot tones and things.
Yep.
And I would really encourage people, if you want to do it, try, unless it's just you with one mic and you're gonna like Skype in guests or something. I would really encourage people to get an analog setup, not a digital setup, so that whatever you're running into your digital device is one feed.
Yes.
You want everything mixed beforehand, and then send one signal into whatever it is that you're using digitally.
And we invested monetarily wise, probably the same amount in the analog as we did in the digital.
I think so, yeah. And we actually got way more for it.
Yeah.
Like in the end, we have more analog stuff than the digital stuff. Although there is a big slew of free digital stuff. There's something about that digital sound to me that just it doesn't sound as authentic. It really doesn't. It's harder it comes across as abrasive a little bit. And if we ever have a show that the audio doesn't sound great, I hope anybody that's listening, I would love for you to let me know. I would like to correct it on the next episode. That was probably the most time I've spent with our podcast is listening to older episode. Like we'd release an episode, I would listen to it, I would do little tweaks on the next one, I would do that again and again and again and again to try to dial everything in, and I hope that we've dialed it in to where it's pretty good now.
Pretty decent. I know that when I've watched a few from outside of here from the live stuff, some of our audio levels are a little low sometimes.
Like you just wish you could turn your phone up more.
Yeah,
and I think that some of that has to do with like if we spent the more money on like really nice mics, we could give them more power without getting any feedback from the stuff, and I think that would fix that for us.
Yeah,
mics are expensive.
Yes, they are.
For a really nice mic is hundreds of dollars, right?
The one I'm looking at is $299.
Yeah, no, they're not cheap, but I think you could do that better with them. You could.
Yeah.
I mean, over on our sound box, we could just crank the volume.
They're going to have a lower noise decibel threshold.
Yeah.
So they'll be able to you can turn the gain up more before it not necessarily the volume, but you get the gain higher.
Yeah, without getting any weird fuzzes and feedbacks and stuff. Yeah. But I encourage anybody that wants to get out there and get their opinion out there. Yeah, man, go for it. Try to do the podcast thing.
Definitely.
I think you'll get
no matter what it
you'll
is,
get a little bit of a nerd or a podcast shock like we did when we first did it. We definitely went into it very naive and thought we'll just make a podcast because it's easy. Everybody does it, right? Yeah. Not the case, man.
No.
It took hours and hours to make every single episode. It was like a part-time job for quite a while, and there were multiple points where I was kind of like, I might just call this quit, man. Like the amount of work that this is taking is ridiculous to get 1 hour of stuff out there. But now it's all been dialed in. It's so worth it. Like I've learned a lot. We've learned a lot going through. It's like the DM thing, right? Like you got to just get out there and you got to do it, and don't be afraid to make some mistakes.
Spending hours. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it's like, it just sometimes.
I've written and rewritten and changed paths and.
Oh yeah, that's like that's like the podcast thing. I can't tell you how many programs I've downloaded and deleted and downloaded a new one and deleted it, and this filter and that filter and whatever. And my biggest tip totally would be, if you can do it, avoid the analog route. The digital route. Go with the analog. Yeah. Unless again it's just a one mic scenario with you at a computer and you're gonna have guests on, like Skyping them in or something.
Well, the biggest problem we ran into with the digital was the fact that each microphone has its own processor.
Yeah. And
has just a slightly different timestamp, or not timestamp, but time.
Like 1 millisecond, like something stupidly minute that matters when you listen to it.
Yeah, but when you go for an hour-long conversation, you're mismatched now.
Yeah. Well, and even the like anytime you do the digital stuff, it totally comes in that way, right? Like each of your channels will come in. And then every time, especially if you're trying to match a video to it, it all gets processed individually. And every time it gets compressed and processed, it's like milliseconds that it'll shift things, and something out won't match with your video, or do all that stuff before you do your final record.
Or you get a RAM dump.
Yeah, we ran into that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it's like boom, it just stops and then picks up again.
Yeah,
5 seconds later.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah. There were bumps in the road along the way for sure. But it's been fun. I've really enjoyed it, and I've really enjoyed getting to know some other people in the podcast community, even some people that don't podcast. Like, I love my banters with Gary. I love that he, we're like real friends now because he has my cell phone number, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah, we're like real friends. So when my Facebook feed or whatever gets filled up, he'll hit me up on my cell phone, on my number. But it's awesome. No,
did you get that Facebook feed I sent?
Yeah. I really actually love my banter with Gary because we'll go off and be so nerdy with each other.
That's awesome.
But Mick and Stupid Mystic Forest has been a lot of fun. It reconnected me. Mythic, sorry. I got it right on the last show.
You did?
I made sure to do that on purpose because I don't want Mick to not be here because I mess up his name on purpose, right?
I like Mick Forest though.
Micketh, I wish it was Micketh. I do. But he's a great guy. I've really enjoyed getting to know him. Such a different type of nerd than we are.
I know.
Again, that was one of those eye-opening things where I met this guy, and I love the energy that he has. I love what's going on with him, and just like he makes the nerdy event better, right? He just does when he's around. But it's in such a different way than the way I'm absorbing it, right? He was one of those first moments where I really realized, like, there are such a slew of different nerds out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I think as nerds, we can shelter ourselves, or like you kind of closet yourself a little bit, right? With your nerd thing. And you have a harder time absorbing other nerd stuff without being like, you're wrong, whatever, right? But when I met...
Need a neck beard for that.
Sorry. But when I met Mick, it was
in glasses and snort.
Right?
I'm sorry, but you're so wrong.
Yeah,
You look
it's
at the
so wrong. Yeah. My nerd thing's better than your nerd thing.
Yes, we do that.
Yeah. But when I met Mick, he was like, he is such a different nerd than I am. Not that doesn't, we don't like cross nerdy things, and we can meet there and like totally nerd out, right? But then he goes left and I go right. Like, that's what happens. But I love that about him and about his nerdiness. It's like, that's what makes him Mick. And it's so cool, and I want to just like totally embrace that with him. And that really is like the biggest thing I've learned in the podcasting. It's just, there are so many other types of nerds and other people out there that are into their things, man. And if you give them a chance and get to know them a little bit, your nerdy path will cross their nerdy path somewhere, right? And you guys can get along. So just because it's not your thing right out of the gate doesn't mean they're an idiot. They might still be an idiot, but you guys will be idiots together somewhere on the path, right? But
hand in hand.
Yeah. Skipping along, a couple of pair of idiots. It's awesome. Trust me. Give them a shot.
Oh my god, I'm turning as red as our sign.
That's the biggest takeaway I've gotten from the whole podcasting thing, is just and I think it's more relevant for, I've already said it a bunch of times, but I really do think it is relevant for us because we are that older nerd generation, right? Like, nerdism is just going to keep trucking along and leave us in the dust. And if
it already is,
right? Like, if we're just going to sit there on our little...
Have you seen the reaction to Pikachu?
Yeah. It's like, if we're going to sit there and just be pissed about everything all the time, that it's not our favorite, we're just going to be pissed all the time. I think it's that way for any nerd. If you're going to find every little reason to be pissed about your nerd thing all the time, you're going to be pissed all the time, because there's a lot of reasons. But some of those reasons other people love, so... Find a way to meet on that crossroad and love it for a minute together and get out of your little stink hole, right? Sometimes I feel like, even me, I get stuck in that stink hole.
Well, I'm still pissed they canceled the Netflix nerd movie shows. So
I'm more okay with it, I think, because I don't think they were going to get a whole lot better. I kind of feel like it was getting to be...
So you think they're going to do better on the Disney service?
I hope it's different. I hope that they don't go to the Disney service at all. I hope that what we got on Netflix was awesome. What parts of it were, again, now we're nitpicking nerdiness, right? But the parts that I loved that were awesome, I'm going to always look back on that as those were really awesome moments. And I loved that we got to be there and experience that Netflix like awesomeness, right? And I kind of think, for me personally at least, if it would have kept going, it would have gotten further and further away from that. And it wouldn't have kept getting better and better and better. It kind of felt like it was getting more watered down and like a little more saturated with the parts that I didn't care for, right? It was starting to be paying the bills Netflix shows as opposed to art.
Yeah.
Maybe to bring it all full circle again, right? It's like I really started to get that vibe with it, especially with your like your Jessica Jones season 2, your Luke Cage season 2, all your Iron Fists. Although the last season of Iron Fist had some killer moments, right? And I did want to see what was going to happen from that, but I almost feel like the anticipation for it would have been so much better than the show they ever would have given me, right?
Yeah.
And I loved Punisher season 2, so I think they went out on a high note, which is never like a super easy thing to do. I'm actually okay with it. I've come to terms with it, and I think it's actually a good thing.
They ended it like they do anime. It just stops.
What? Yeah, it just does. But at least with the Punisher, you got that definitive final scene where he is just dual gunned, shells popping out, murdering people, Punisher, right? Which was pretty cool. I like that they ended it as.
Yet.
Okay, well, you get that. It's like a little teaser eye candy shot. It's basically.
I want to, but I just haven't bought the. Oh, hey, guess our cheer captain's calling me.
Our cheer captain?
Yeah.
Which one's the cheer captain?
Josh.
Oh, nice. Nice. Haven't heard from that guy forever.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to call him back when we're done with this.
There you go. I like you see the nerdiness doesn't stop.
No,
just
it
the
doesn't.
camera does.
Yeah.
So, do we want to talk about our beer review?
Definitely. It's working.
It is working. I'm feeling kind of buzzed.
This has stayed amazing all the way through.
That's why I'm so like peace and free love this episode. It's
There
all this booze I've had. Don't expect it next time.
The malt body really, really picks up the more you drink it. It's just like every time you do it, it layers on another layer of that malt body to it. It just keeps building.
Yeah.
That gets stronger, which ultimately brings a little bit more sweetness to it every time you go, but that's okay. It's still very well balanced.
Yeah.
It's thick. It stays thick. It sits heavy. It's a big beer. It's
when we started drinking this, it was pretty warm, right? Like
it started out warm, but it was still way cooler than it is now.
Yes, and I'm glad that we got a little bit of that transition, but I almost wish it would have been a little bit colder when we first started because it is even different now. I would totally agree that even though it wasn't really cold to what it's warmed up to now, there's already been that big of a jump. So I would have been curious to taste it cooler. Mm-hmm. I bet it would have been even a little bit smoother, and then you would have got some of those subtle tastes a little more gradually.
I think the coffee would have been way stronger colder.
Probably a little bit more of that back tongue stuff we were getting. Yeah. It's almost you get a little more middle tongue now.
Yes.
Is that
yes,
you get that?
We'll call it that.
Okay. Yes, Marcus, shut up and drink more.
But yeah, no, it's you totally you get the malt body, the malt flavors, you get the sweetness, you get that roasted barley really heavy at the end. I don't know, man, it's really good. I'm sorry, I like this a lot.
I'm really enjoying it. I really don't have anything bad to say about it. It's almost a meal, right? Like it is.
Oh,
it's very much. It's a lot of this beer.
That said, I need a meal right now just to offset it. But
awesome, we'll have a burrito after this. Don't worry about it. I got leftover burritos.
Sweet,
right? It's always a podcast and leftover lunch. So that's why that happens at the after parties.
Yep.
I think if I had to put a number on this, I'd give it. Man, it's really, really good. I think I'm gonna give it a. I'm gonna go 8.7.
Wow.
I think it's really good. I was going to say 8.5, but I really do enjoy it. It's really good.
I was going to go 8.75, so.
Oh, nice. In the same wheelhouse. I wish it would explode. Boom. All right, we need to write that on something, or I'll forget. Write it down and put it in your phone. So, again, I guess, like, kind of our overarching message through the whole thing is embrace some positive hippie energy while you're out there. Right? Don't be the douchebag that shows up to the party. Don't be that guy.
Yeah.
All the time.
Embrace other nerds.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, just remember that because
and
it's not because it's not your favorite doesn't mean it isn't somebody else's. And and try to find some common ground there. I think it sounds like crazy hippie talk, but it really does matter. Your life will go smoother. And check out some other cool people's podcasts. The Adventure Zone, check them out.
Yeah, Adventure Zone from McElroy's. They're huge. I mean, I don't know how you don't know about McElroy's.
Yeah.
And then There Will Be Dungeons, which is from the Frog Pants Network. If you're into anything Blizzard, I'm sure you know all about them.
Yeah.
But There Will Be Dungeons, love it. I think they are the best. They own their characters. It's real D&D. It's freaking awesome. Glass Cannon. Glass Cannon's really good. Their audio quality isn't as good. They got a little bit more table talk than I like, but it's still real D&D. They're actually playing Pathfinder, but it's just like D&D essentially.
Yeah.
It's what 4th edition D&D should have been.
Yeah.
But it's they're playing Pathfinder. It's good. Their audio quality just isn't quite as good, and it just how do I put it?
I don't know. You put it.
I was saying, how do I put it? It's they just don't sound like they're as seasoned of podcasters.
Okay.
You know,
although sometimes I think that's kind of a fun time to jump in with podcast, because again, it's the art part of it, right?
Yeah.
It's the learning where you're
Exactly.
learning it while they're learning it, which is kind of fun to experience to some degree, unless it's a big learning curve. Sometimes it's too abrasive for me. I'll admit.
To be honest, though, I think ours is probably going to be closest to Glass Cannon as far as how ours is going to sound.
Okay. And
just in general, the way things are handled, and
yeah, I would say
I don't think we're going to RP as well as There Will Be Dungeons does.
Okay.
I mean, because the guys that do, they get into the RP, they get into the character speak and all that stuff really hard.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, did you get to the part where they met Quizquaz and all that?
I don't remember who that is. Is he like almost the
Quizquaz
Evangeles
Quizquaz
type person?
was
I was a big fan of that character.
The Evangeles.
Like the religious on the crate speaker in the middle of the whatever.
Oh, you're talking about Stanley Billings.
Yeah, yeah.
Stanley Billings.
I was a big fan of him. I was like, he's so southern.
He's the bard.
Yeah, like he rode in on a wagon, man, for sure. That guy was awesome.
Exactly. No, Stanley Billings is a politician. He believes in equality amongst all people.
Yeah, okay. So
he wants them
Evangeles,
to-
yes, yeah, same thing. But yeah, totally check them out. Again, big shout out to Stupid Mythic Forest.
Yes.
Right? Go check their stuff out. Really, really great guy. Super nerd. He's been a guest on here a lot of times. Go give him a hard time. He would love to hear from you on Twitter. All these people, I'm sure.
Yes.
I've really been enjoying the Drink in the Movies guys. They're so hilarious to me. They're so nerdy in ways
I've yet to
that
listen
I'm
to
not.
their stuff. I've listened to Superhero Speak a couple times now.
Yeah.
They're pretty good. I really like what they have to say.
Yeah.
I really like what they have to say, actually.
Yeah. And they seem very similar to what our mentality was and still kind of is, where it's just like, we're a couple of older nerds sitting around going to get nerdy, right? And I feel like that is still their mentality. So yeah, check them out. And
why fight it?
yeah, right. Totally. Well, the last thing you want to do is put something out there to be judged for that's not you anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to be judged, at least I'm going to be me. And then, but really, the Drink in the Movies, like you'll have to listen to their newest episode. They crack me up with, like, they don't necessarily come across as the same type of nerds as us at all, but they're so nerdy about movies. Like, I would love to talk to them and just tell them, you guys are the biggest movie nerds of my life. Like, it's awesome, right? They're totally Siskel and Ebert. When I think of, like, they are the ultimate movie nerds, right? They come across as that kind of thing. So, big shout out to those guys too. But yeah, check out podcasts, man. I think the toughest thing with a podcast is finding one sometimes. Like there's so many.
There's so many and yet so few.
Well, and there's so few that have actually like been designated appropriately. So like when you put in the keyword or something, like it's hard. There's diamonds in the rough out there. I'd like to think of us as one of them. But
I'm not gonna lie. I think we put out a solid cast. I really do.
I hope so. There's a lot of work.
I wish we had more people appreciating it, but
yeah. Well, we're working on. We're almost at 100.
Yeah, we're almost at 100.
Yeah, we want to definitely leave on that note. One person, please subscribe. I wish I could. I want to give the 100th person something, right? Like it's like, dude, you're the 100th subscriber. But now I feel like
all the people before.
Oh my god! Like Dad, I cannot discredit Dad. It's like the most loyal fan we've ever had. The only fan we've had.
He's been a guest, and he comments and gets shout outs relentlessly. So
yeah. Well, he hasn't actually been a guest yet. He will be at the end of the month.
Okay.
Maybe we should reiterate that, but before we wrap up, we did pick our animes and our nerd play because we like to play a free PlayStation game that we get every month. And the one we're going to play is For Honor, which is totally in Dad's honor, right? Because that is the game he played for years and years and years.
On the wrong system.
Yes, on Xbox. But he's always commenting, so we really want to, like, it's like our tribute kind of nerd play to him.
Which we appreciate. This is more of a... We're not really a PlayStation podcast, but we're a PlayStation podcast.
Oh, totally. It's our system of choice, for sure.
Yes.
And he's totally going to play that. Again, I'm sure he will have more opinions about it than us. I'm really excited to have him on at the end of the month. Dad's going to come on and talk about For Honor with us, review it with us. He's going to be our guest. And I just kind of curious to pick his brain a little bit about our show and him, and just kind of get to know him a little better since he knows us. He really wanted to do a meet and greet. That's just not going to happen because we just 100 people. At least get 100 people first, right? But I'd like to at least do that for him. It's super cool. And then we're gonna watch. Yeah, he was like, "How long are you guys gonna podcast? I'd love to do like a meet and greet like type thing where I can see you guys live or something." And I was like, so flattered, like, right? I'm flattered that you think we could go somewhere and do it live, right? Like that is in the feasible future for us. I'm so flattered, and I love giving him a hard time. He's good at doing it back. So when we wrap up the end of this month,
maybe next year's bonus, I could spend it on a hall. We could rent it and get like 5 people.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Dad. That's my only fear is we're going to do a recorded episode with Dad because I think if we do it live, there won't be anybody there, exactly. Right? So we're gonna do pre-recorded with him though. He'll be here. It's gonna be a lot of fun to have him. I'm kind of curious to pick his brain a little bit, get to know him a little better. I feel like he knows us way better than we know him, so it'll be cool to get to know him.
Definitely.
And then the anime we're going to watch is the Ninja Batman.
Okay.
So I have it, I believe, I might have the DVD plus Blu-ray, so I can lend you one.
Okay.
But I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it in English and Japanese. I'm going to finish it and not fall asleep this time. That's my goal. So check those out. Like we've said a billion times in this episode, one more person.
Yeah.
One more person. And then go out there and check out some nerdy stuff with other people that... cross paths, man. Meet in the middle and have a good time with other nerds. Don't give them too much of a hard time. Unless it's us. You can do that on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you.
Exactly.
To all the nerds.
Through all the fuzz.
Bottoms up. Let's get Nerdbuzzed. Wait. Jack's not here.
Got ready?
Talking about beer.
Oh, I didn't explode it.
Talking about nerd culture. You're on Nerdbuzzed. Marcus and Jeremiah, you're on Nerdbuzzed.
One more person. One more.
But no, this felt like one of our early episodes, dude. It really did.
Yeah, it was art. We made art today, Jay.
We did.